What do you think about racial preferences in dating? Is it harder for certain races? It's a really complicated question. I think it depends on, in general, what country you're in. I can only speak for the States because that's where I'm from. And, even though I've traveled, I think it's different to live somewhere and really experience what it's like. From my experiences, I think that your race does play a factor in dating. I can't sugarcoat it, man. I think still today we have people that are not willing to date outside what they're used to. There are people who are prejudiced. There are people who are outright racist. There are people who are worried about what their peers might think, and that will affect who they pursue in the dating market. For example, I had a good female friend of mine who was dating an Indian guy for a long time. They were potentially going to get married, and then his parents did not like the fact that he was going to get married to a white woman, and even though he loved her, he just couldn't overcome his familial pressure and had to break it off with her, which kind of devastated her. In terms of if you're a man, I think the most noticeable that you will feel it is in the online dating market. There's just lots of data that shows if you're non-white, you have a slightly more difficult time. You will get less matches, you will get less responses. And that's just the unfortunate reality. Same thing if you have certain other aspects of yourself, like if you're shorter and you list your height, you just get less attention online. That being said, I think that unless you're going to give up online dating entirely, which for a lot of guys, I don't think you should because it's becoming the primary avenue in which people meet each other. You have to find a way to make it work despite that. And so, for example, let's say you might get 20% less matches than a similar guy in your city who might be white. That just means you have to try 20% more. You have to swipe a bit more. You have to reach out a bit more. And it stinks in that sense, but there's no other real solution for it. Now, the good thing is in person, I tend to find that it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Once somebody gets to see you face to face and they talk to you and they interact with you and they feel your humanity, a lot of that goes out the window. And in fact, sometimes I think the contrast principle comes into play where if something is different than what we are used to or different than what we expect and they surprise us, it can actually be even more interesting. So, for example, I'm short and I used to look like a child. I'm starting to look a bit more my age. But if I went out and I was at times bold, assertive, opinionated, I could challenge somebody with dialogue, then they're like, oh my God, I expected this shorter, young-looking guy to be really passive and really quiet. And by me subverting those expectations, it actually became a strength. And so that's what I would say is if people judge you a certain way, for example, I know a lot of people have this stereotype about Asian guys that they're going to be more quiet. And if you can be a bit more outspoken, you can practice good body language, projecting your voice, then I think that becomes interesting and unique and can work in your favor. So yeah, I think race does affect things. I don't think it affects things so much that you can't have any success. And I think it affects things much less in person than online.